Great Writers Media.
Welcome to the Books of the Month show. I'm so glad that you're joining us this evening. My special guest today is Kaz Piper. She is an amazing author. She is the author of the book, Those Little White Lines. How are you today, Kaz?
Really well, thanks, Marilyn. How are you?
I am doing fantastic today. I'm so excited to hear more about your book. Tell me a little bit about yourself, Cass, and what is the purpose of this book? Interesting title here, Those Little White Lines. Tell us more.
Okay, well, I'm a newly published Australian author of my novel, Those Little White Lines. And it's basically a story about survival, I would say. But it was in the 80s, and there was a lot of sex, drugs, and rock and roll, which was very epic at that time. And growing up in a place called Wollongong, which is known as the Gong, it was explosive, with bands coming down from Sydney, which was only an hour south of Sydney. And we had bands like AC/DC, In Excess, the Divinals, the Angels, and all these bands that sort of were just making it there at that time, but then they ended up just exploding. So
Yes.
very proud of that. But my inspiration for music was with my parents. My father, who was a secretary of the Waterside Workers Union, that looked after people and communities down here in Wollongong. And he also loved his dance. He loved dancing. And my mother was a waitress, working in Sydney, in King's Cross, which is known as Sin City, but it's a bit of corruption there in those days. But and she used to sing after her shift with the piano man, and that's where my mum and dad met. So my inspiration was for music and dance was at that time. But just quickly, I remember one morning we well, it happened all the time because my parents always had the radio playing, and it was always Solomon Burke, Sam Cooke, Ray Charles, Engelbert Humperdinck, all those really cool bands, singers. And this one morning me and my siblings and I came down to the kitchen, and Mum was cooking, and they had the radio on to Buddy Holly song, That Will Be the Day That I Die. And they were rocking in the kitchen while my mum was cooking, and all us kids were on the table.
Okay, yes.
Yeah, so it started at a very early age, and it was fantastic. So hence it coming up to my 20s, I ended up leaving Wollongong and went to Sydney and followed my mother's footpath and waitressed in a restaurant in Surrey Hills in Sydney. And it was just after that shift one night, we went out with my girlfriend into a club in King's Cross. And that was epic with all the rock and roll scene, because it was there was a Mansour Room, there was a Cauldron, the Rogues, the Tunnel, and it was also a red light district. So there was a lot of action, if you know what I mean. And so that's where I met Jose, and that's where the journey begins. So
Wow. Okay. Tell us more about the character that's called Bridget.
Bridget, that's moi, of course.
Yes.
Well, yeah. Bridget grew up, of course, in a situation where wasn't very good at school. I didn't really like school. I think at the end of the day, I learned more out of school than I ever did in school. And I was a little bit well developed in those days. So I was sort of targeted a lot with my looks and my form. But growing up, I just love my music and and dancing, and I think that's about all I can say, other than sun, surf, and music. Because where I live in Wollongong, or wherever I used to live, it's a seaside town, so it lays beside the Pacific Ocean. So there was lots of surf, surfies, surf scenes, and music and just fun stuff. It was really good. The 80s were good. Actually, right from where I started with my parents, listening to music all the time, and my sister actually played in a band as well, 2 nights a week. in a rock band. So that was another inspiration for me to get to where I am. But
Mhm.
Bridget was, at the end of the day, she got involved with Jose, who just swept her off her feet. It was like a dream. It was a dream turned nightmare, basically, at the end of the day, because
Yes.
I got smuggled into America via Canada. And also while I was in to Seattle, and then I had another trip down to Tijuana illegally, but that's okay. And I survived. And then because he was involved too with the Mexican drug cartel there, I found out later on. I didn't know any of what was happening. And then after about 12 months of having fun, being on the road, meeting some famous musicians, he ended up turning into a very aggressive mental and physical abuse.
Mhm.
So my message out there is with the book is survival. And if there's
Yes.
any women out there that think, you know, their American dream is going to happen, well, just be careful, because it's if anything seems too good to be true, it usually is.
Yes, absolutely right. You're absolutely right on that. But when it came to meeting Hosea, he really just captivated your heart. What is it that you can say to women today that may be going through something well similar to this? What is it that you can say? What are some of the signs that you notice about when you think about it now? In the beginning, you probably saw some signs that you ignored. What are some of the signs that you saw?
Well, of course, Jose was very hypnotic, hence the hypnotics. And he was just so cool, you know, he had the American accent and he was just so smooth, and he was really, really involved with himself. Like he thought he was really good, which he was. It's very nice at that time. And yeah, so um basically, yeah, I'm not really sure how to answer that, but yeah, he
So you
was.
were really captivated. Sometimes when we're
I
really
was.
captivated, you don't see the warning signs. But sometimes when as you think about it, then you go back and you think and you said, "Oh, yeah, that he did say that, or he did do this. I should have noticed this." But I understand that because sometimes we as women can really get captivated when there
Mhm.
is a handsome, good-looking man just wooing you, and all of that good stuff, and you get yourself caught up into it. And every woman has probably experienced that or knows someone that have experienced that. But it's all about survival. And that's a part of your story. And I think that is so amazing. Can you give us just a tidbit of your favorite chapter in your book?
My favorite chapter in the book would be um, leaving to go to Europe with my sister. Finally, because the situation was that, of course, I was there illegally for so long, and then Jose let me leave as long as I had to come back within the 6 weeks. And when I was back in Australia, my sister and I had a planned a Kentucky tour of Europe. And so hence I had a return ticket. So it was from Australia to Los Angeles to Europe and
Mhm,
then back to Australia. So I was in control then. And that was,
mhm.
yeah, so that chapter was really, really pleasing to me.
Yeah, so
And
you were in control at that point. So that's why that's your favorite chapter. So as you look at it now, you see the control
Mhm.
that he had over you.
Yeah, but then he didn't, and he did not like it. When I told
Mhm.
him, it was about a week before we left for Europe, I told him then, and he just freaked. So yeah, and it was just like, we'll see you later. So he just said, I want you out now. So my sister and I, we had a week or two before we flew out. So we ended up, going down to Santa Monica and up to San Simeon. And we did a few things like that before we left. But we ended up going to Acapulco, which was interesting. My sister and I, this was before I had mentioned to Jose that I was going to Europe. And so we went in, and my sister didn't have a visa, and I did. So Mexico was, very staunch with the visas. And anyhow, so there was only 2 planes going out that day to Mexico, to Acapulco, and we missed it. And luckily we did, because that was the plane that went down and killed everyone on the plane.
Oh, wow.
So the angels were looking after me. So my angels are there, and I just love them, and thank you. It's just they've protected me the whole way.
Yes, absolutely. And thank God for that, because you really have a story to tell.
Too.
You really have a story to tell, and in this book, I just recommend women all around the world to get a copy of this book, because it's all about romance, and then it's all about survival, and how to recognize a Jose, by reading this book, how to recognize a Jose. So absolutely. So tell me, when did you decide this has been so many years ago, and why did you wait so long to write this amazing book?
Well, I had written it 20 years ago,
Okay.
and I was a little bit scared to have it out there, even though I've got pseudonym names.
Yes.
And then I thought, well, after a period, I think it's 30 plus years, you can't really get in trouble for doing or being a part of something that I was a part of, because it's ancient history sort of thing.
Yes.
So it was, and eventually, I had to have closure. So in the book, I probably shouldn't say this, but in the book I do kill him off, but that was just for me to say. Well,
yeah. And that's a good thing. The reason I'm saying that is because as women, not to physically kill them off, but kill them off mentally, that cut off. Okay, this is it. No more control, no more of trying to control me, no more of the abuse. This is it. I'm out of here. I believe that your book is an amazing book that can really change the lives of women and men, change the lives of women, and cause them to think and see the red flags and see those things, and be able to gain back control. So it's all about survival. It's all about gaining back control and making a change, so they can tell a story just like you did. But their story is going to be a story of power, a story of victory, and a story of success, of overcoming control. And so I thank you so much for coming on the show. Gotta have you back again on some other shows. You are just amazing. I thank you so much for joining us today. And those of you that are tuning in, we thank you so much for joining us today on the Books of the Month show.
Yeah. So everyone out there, it's kazpiper.com, those little white lines. And I've got another book coming out very soon, and it'll be called The Girl from the Gong, which is Wollongong, where I was from.
We're looking forward.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Marilyn. It was a pleasure.
Thank you so much. More than a pleasure.
Okay. Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Visit www.greatwritersmedia.com. Email us at info@greatwritersmedia.com. Call us at 877-600-5469. Subscribe now.